Adapting a popular character from comic book to film is never an easy task. Sure, some studios make it look easier than others, but comics readers won't need reminding that the path from page to screen is one fraught with danger, drab leather outfits, and even your favorite childhood creations mercilessly murdering people just because the director hates the material they're adapting in the first place. I'm looking at you, Batman v Superman. I still have that grudge. When all these things collide, you're left with a bad comic book movie, and it's sadly the case that some of these stinkers are so bad, they've managed to ruin certain characters in the eyes of the movie-going public. Yes, readers may know better, that these characters deserve a second chance, but first impressions count. And sadly, for these folks, they weren't good at all. So, seeing as how I love Payne about as much as Speedball did after he had that spiky outfit installed as penance, I'm Ewan, this is What Culture Comics, and here are the 10 beloved comic book characters movie fans hate. Number 10. Steel. John Henry Irons, aka Steel, was supposed to be introduced in a follow-up to a live-action adaptation of the Death of Superman comic released in 1992. The project, presumably the ill-fated Superman Lives starring Nicolas Cage, God, I wish we could have seen that, was cancelled 3 weeks before filming was set to begin. But the producers behind Steel secured a green light for their own project and moved ahead with it as a standalone film. Starring NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal as the titular hero, the film was released in 1997 and was a categorical misfire, panned by both critics and audiences. The character of Steel had been a fairly recent but popular addition to DC Comics during the death of Superman, but the film chose to remove the character from the continuity and feature the metal-clad hero in his own universe. The resulting effort was a mess of cheesy dialogue, campy set pieces, a woeful storyline, and an uncomfortably awkward performance from O'Neal in the lead role. A huge bummer, it must be said. Number 9. Jonah Hex. Okay, look, I know the whole point of lists is to start from least of X thing before moving to the top, but I need to get this one out of the way. Jonah Hex is such a cult hero for DC fans. An old gun-toting bounty hunter back when men had no teeth, and trivial arguments over land and livestock rustling ended with a bullet between the eyes. He's featured in comics great and not so great, but proved popular enough off the back of a brilliant run in the mid-noughties that a film based on the character was greenlit. That run, by the way, was by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti. Go check it out if you haven't already. But back to the film. Great, we all thought. It's tricky to mess up a Western, and in 2010, comics were all the rage on the big screen. This would be a no-brainer. And then Warner Brothers hired the fellas who did Crank, who proceeded to ignore all the comics and instead based their entire research for the character on 1999's Wild Wild West. Sadly, unlike that film, comics fans didn't even get a class Will Smith song as a consolation prize. Now everyone hates poor Jonah, and while there's talk he might get a miniseries on WB's new streaming service, there's no chance he'll endear himself to the movie-going public anytime soon. Number 8. The Spirit. Look, right, Will Eisner is a legend. There's a reason why the most prestigious award in comics is named after the man, who pioneered so much of what we've grown used to with comics today, and who wrote some of the most amazing work ever to grace the medium. One of Eisner's most important works was The Spirit, a newspaper serial that focused on a titular vigilante who donned a mask and fought crime. The Spirit was one of the great pulp heroes, one who, while popular during his original publishing run, wasn't exactly famous compared to the monolithic characters of Marvel and DC. Still, for what The Spirit lacked in terms of mainstream popularity, he more than made up in quality and on-screen potential. That's why a film was in development for so long, and why one was finally released, directed by post-Holy Terror, post-All-Star Batman and Robin, Frank Miller. It might be a tad disingenuous to say movie fans hate The Spirit, but equally, if they are to recall the character, their first thought will be this 2008 monstrosity. Cheers, Frank. Number 7. Judge Dredd. Whilst everyone's favourite judge, jury, and executioner may have found redemption in 2012's hardcore hyper-violent reboot, fans and audiences still have not forgotten Judge Dredd's original feature film debut from 1995. Even having one of the biggest action stars in the world at the time attached to your project is no sure guarantee of success, as the involvement of Sly Stallone in the adaptation of one of Britain's most successful comics would prove. Seeing the Rocky actor delivering one of his all-time worst performances from his long and illustrious career. Let me do an impression. I am. Constantly removing his helmet was one of the biggest nopes that sent fans into fits of rage, but combined with some serious overacting, a weak script, and being a gigantic tonal mismatch certainly did not help the film either. Also, it had Rob Schneider. Rob Schneider! If your film has Schneider in it, you know it's going to be bad. Sly has even gone on record to apologise for how the film turned out, and also commented on its shoddy development. Ah well, at least it gave us that bit where Armand Asante goes, "Law." That was nice. Number 6. Ghost Rider. The start of the new millennium was really not the best time for a lot of Marvel heroes, but none had arguably a more woeful time of things than Ghost Rider. Marvel have a rug of great supernatural characters, as is evidenced by the love out there for Wesley Snipes' Blade, and the spirit of vengeance should have been as successful. Unfortunately, the Rider's first live-action bow resulted in a Nicolas Cage misfire where he's addicted to jelly beans and nothing happens? And then the sequel, brought to you by the lads who did Jonah Hex, was just as bad. Although it did give us Ghost Rider pissing molten fire, so I guess we can't hate it. Number 5. Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze is a Batman villain who underwent one of the biggest changes in the history of the Caped Crusaders run in popular media. Brilliantly reimagined in the amazing animated series in Heart of Ice, Freeze became one of the most menacing, but also more tragic of rogues the Dark Knight has ever faced. So, who do you get, you might ask, to relay the character's tragic inner turmoil on screen? Why, you get Arnold, of course. Arnie was completely miscast in the role, delivering puns at any opportunity, wearing a suit that made him look more like a giant blue light bulb than a serious villain, and displaying none of the cold-hearted detachment and villainy that really made the character stand out in Heart of Ice. Number 4. Green Lantern. At the time, there may have been some seriously credible thoughts going around at WB that Ryan Reynolds was the perfect fit to bring Hal Jordan, the Green Lantern, to the big screen. And then they put him in a CGI costume, saddled him with a villain who is literally a big pooey space cloud, and called it a day. No, really, they made a film about Green Lantern, a comic that could be WB's own rival to Star Wars if they cared enough, that was set entirely on Earth. And put him in a tacky suit for good measure, and didn't focus on Hal Jordan's relationship with Sinestro, even when you had Mark Strong in the role. Look, I know I sound like a right dork when I rant like this, but Green Lantern being this bad really makes no sense whatsoever. He killed DC's first attempt at a cinematic universe, and now movie fans hate him. Great. Number 3. Robin. The most recognizable sidekick in the history of comics, but also a bona fide hero in their own right in many cases, Robin might be one of the most endearing comic book characters of all time, and one that most movie fans are convinced would not work on the big screen. It's hard to see how this could have gone any other way apart from poorly when looking back at the introduction of the character in Batman Forever, and that's a film I actually kind of like. Questionable move from the outset, getting the then 27-year-old Chris O'Donnell to play the boy wonder, and one that wasn't lost on anyone watching in the audience. The origin story for O'Donnell's Robin was not one that deviated too heavily from the comics, which made it even more jarring watching the character develop on screen and be treated more as a juvenile than his appearance might have warranted. Coupled with a disastrously immature showing in the sequel Batman and Robin, it's fair to say that O'Donnell and his efforts in the role were not best appreciated by fans. And the character has not yet managed to make his way back into live action ever since, unless you count the tattered suit in Batman v Superman, which I don't. Number 2. Cyclops. There are few characters that have been done a greater disservice in a live-action adaptation of their source material than X-Men leader Cyclops. The key term in that sentence is leader, as that is exactly what Cyclops has often been seen as in the X-Men comics and expanded media, a fact that the film series would choose to omit and instead focus all the attention on Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. While it would be easy to simply chalk up the poor portrayal and reaction to the character down to the wider decisions made behind the scenes, James Marsden was still highly unspectacular in the role. He never gets anything to do other than tell Logan to, quote, stay away from his girl, #cancelled, and then die. He's then just as forgettable in the rebooted timeline, alongside half the other X-Men like Storm and Jean. Cyclops, out of all of them though, is probably the most loathed by general audiences. He's never intended to be anything but a stick in the mud, and that's just crap. And number 1, the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom. Yep, we kinda cheated on this last entry, but when a group of beloved characters and their arch-nemesis are done the dirty not once, not twice, but thrice, they deserve to all be included in the same entry. Where do you even start with the diabolical history of the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom on the big screen? A comic book property so hot, so beloved, the legendary producer Roger Corman was hired to put a sham $2 million production through filming just so the studio could keep the license for the property. A move that did not go unnoticed from 20th Century Fox later on in time. Casting for the heroes in both films can be best described in either case as a few promising additions with an equal amount of questionable choices at the same time. And although actors like Chris Evans, Michael B. Jordan, and Miles Teller are pretty big names in the world of film nowadays, it also proved to be career-tanking ventures for others like Jessica Alba and Ian Grufford. Worse still though is what they did to Doctor Doom. The guy is Marvel's greatest villain, and what did they do with him? Turn him into a suit. A suit. And then the 2015 one made him look like a giant crash test dummy come to life to massacre car manufacturers for killing his dummy wife and child. Just not again, I can't take it. And that, loyal viewers, was our list. Please let me know any other characters you think the movies have ruined down in the comments below. Remember, you can find more articles like this at whatculture.com/comics and more of me on Twitter at @DuneRunesThings. For now though, I hope you have a great day and I'll see you next time. Bye!